Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, and welcome to today's session. It's about incentives and behavior and how to manage those two. So, without further ado, just checking, making sure our technology is working. If you can give me a thumbs up, let me check that it's all working properly before I get into today's sessions. Important information just before we start. A bit of background. The uh, the workshop today is from my book, the Leadership Intelligence Handbook. 196 different situations, context, and strategies on how to deal with those 196 situations. It's volume one of two because when we looked at all of the information we had, instead of a 300-page book, it was going to be a 700-page book, and we decided to break it into two. Volume two is coming maybe even this quarter. It's just going through a restructure at the moment. So the purpose of the book is really to take people, leaders, coaches through the journey of self awareness, observing others, aligning your communication style and your systems, right? So when I talk about BIQ, I'm often switching between behavior intelligence and business intelligence. And the reason being is we uh, constantly are evolving software solutions to business problems. And business problems are either behavioral ones, leadership ones, or systems and technology oriented ones. So, with AI and everything that's happening, we're also in the midst of launching a brand new product called BIQ Nexus. BIQ Nexus is the solution to the marketing challenges that all small businesses and leaders have been struggling with. The over promise and under deliver, the expenses versus the results, the conversion rates, looking at the journey of marketing a new product or a new service or an existing one for that matter, so you can actually do warm outreach or cold outreach, and we will discuss all of that. And we are launching that maybe even this week. So if you're interested to become one of the founders, to evaluate and give us your feedback on BIQ Nexus, it's here now. All right, so just checking, making sure everything is working. I'm not seeing any issues, so thank you. Let's get started. So here we are. Today we are talking about behavior intelligence or leadership intelligence from the perspective of incentives aligning behavior and actually driving behavior the right way. Okay. And we often see a lot of incentives that go wrong, and I'm going to talk about those and how to fix those. And if you hang around, we will cover a 7-day program that you can start implementing immediately in your company, your business, your practice. All right. So let me kick it off here. Let's make sure this is going to work. All right. So the reality of incentives, right? The intention is great. That we want to drive innovation. We get these light bulb moments of, looking at statistics and going, we need to come up with a solution to that. We bring forward some ideas and we put it out there and nothing happens, all right? Or we get a little blip for a week, a month, and then it tapers off and nothing, everything goes back to the way it was before. So you probably hear me talking about this many, many times. Behavior is not intention, or intention doesn't result in behavior. There is a disconnect, if you like, between what we think and how we act it out. And what we think should be encouraging other people is just really about what might encourage us. It doesn't always work with other people. So your best intentions can often go sideways. And I've seen this so many times, and I'll share some stories on that. So what I'll cover today are the 7 areas of incentives and why they fail, and some examples of situations that we've experienced with clients or in my own business, my own career. And I'll cover some of those stories so that you can actually get a better handle on how that works. So the rewards, immediacy, and consequences. And I'll talk about that when we get into those slides. The penalties, the rewards that come out of that, and the timeliness of that. Important phrase there, principle number 1 is people do what gets rewarded, not what you hope they value, right? It's an important distinction. The example here is the gap of behavior versus intention, or intention versus behavior. Sales organization urged the reps to deepen their relationship, but they were rewarding the closing of sales. They didn't change the system to really adapt to rewarding the right behavior that they're looking for. So ask yourself the question, is it more important to look after your existing clients and keep them longer, or go chasing after new ones all the time? Which do you want to reward? How do you want to reward each one of those, right? And I'm sure you've experienced this, you've thought about this. Maybe you want to reward the conversion rate. Right? So looking at how the incentive works is important. So when you only reward closures, right, you send a message out there that that's the behavior you're looking for. If you don't specify the behavior that is tied to your intention, then the reward is what's going to drive the behavior, all right? Even though you talk about it, you might coach people and do all kinds of things to help people understand it. If you reward the wrong thing, you will get the wrong result. And we've seen this many times before, right? So attach tangible rewards to the behavior that you're looking to achieve, right? Bonuses, commissions should be around the net promoter score instead of just the closing of sales, right? Repeat business, those kinds of things. So how do you deal with this? The first thing you need to do is really list the current rewards and define or identify through observation and talking to people, right, about what they see as important and what they believe is being rewarded and the behavior that they're looking for, right? We had multiple situations like that where, going to the team and asking the team, hey, how come you're not working on this incentive that we talked about? And the answer was clearly, well, it doesn't affect my bottom line. It doesn't affect my bonuses. It doesn't affect my commission, right? If you change my commission to be aligned to that, yeah, I'll do that work. But until you do that, I'm going to focus on what I get paid to do, right? So loyalty bonuses were introduced, and that really helped solve that problem. We often talk about culture. What is culture? It's the consistent behavior, observable behavior that is consistent in a group. Okay, so let's look at this quick example. A startup company wanted the team to go above and beyond. Right? We actually see cultures like this. Not to single anyone culture out, and I'm sure you've seen this. I was running training in a country that was focused on the overtime and the attendance of people. So people showed up even though they wanted to innovate and be a world leader in that country. What they were rewarding was attendance. Showing up before the boss, leaving after the boss leaves at night, and people were overworked, they were burning out, and the actual outcome of the culture was a lower performance throughout the whole organizations and even that country. So there was a big shift that needed to happen. Let's reward the right things. All right. So, incentives send a powerful message through that. So this is all about incentives and how to use that. So reward the right things, reward collaboration or reward the innovation, foster teamwork, make it public. The rewards, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Design incentives to reinforce the behavior that you are looking for, and make sure you look at the ones that are getting the wrong behavior. Maybe we don't make enough emphasis of that. If you are not getting the right result from your incentives, you need to look at the incentives that exist that are driving the wrong behavior so that you can replace those with the right ones. If work-life balance is important, then making sure no emails are sent after 6 p.m. might be one of the ways that you measure that or track that, right? And draft a calendar to reward the balance that you see, how people are doing that. Maybe have a board where people share some of their personal stories outside of work, etc. And get excited about that culture if that's what you want to achieve. Timely acknowledgement outweighs delayed bonuses. We see this again very often. A lot of companies will set up annual bonuses, quarterly bonuses. All that happens with those is people start to expect them, right? They don't work for them. They don't strive to exceed anything other than doing what they normally do, and still expect the bonus at the quarter or at the end of the year. So I often share conversations around our humanity, our animal instincts, if you like, and using animals as an example of how well this works. If you've got pets, when should you reward a good behavior with your pet? Do you wait till the end of the day and give them a treat, or do you instantly they do the right thing, you reward them. That's what works, right? Okay. So if we have animal instincts, our fight and flight instincts are still there. We are still human. Regardless of what happens, we still have an amygdala. It's not shrunk and disappeared. It's still there. We still have our survival instinct. And so rewarding at the right time is critical. That thank you when they've done a great job, rather than structuring bonuses and getting fancy about pay structures and all kinds of things. The simple stuff works best. Okay, being appreciated is far more, at the time you do something, is far more valuable than the bonus. I've talked about how team members have come to me and said they've been approached to be poached by our competitors, and they've said no because of the culture, the respect, the trust that is developed within the organization. That's the stuff that really builds the powerful culture. If you want to do that, you need to make sure you have the right rituals in place, right? And those rituals are really things you need to practice. The word ritual is really critical. How do you create a ritual if you never practice it? You need to practice these things consistently, regularly. The thank yous, or the respect, the good morning, taking time to sit with people, get to know them. All of these little things are critical to your culture, rather than just the bonuses, right? You want people to stay because they love to be there, right? Okay. Next, punishing the right things, calibrated penalties. Okay, the word punish, I know I'm going to get a lot of people saying, oh my God, guys, get over it. As I said earlier, we still have fight and flight instincts. Okay, what is fight and flight? If you put it into the reward context, fight is the drive to succeed, if you like, in the motivation aspect. Flight is the fear of the consequences, and we have both. And we've proven that over and over and over and over thousands of times through the AccuMatch map. If you get your AccuMatch map, you'll see that the chart for towards and away, which is the fight and flight, the consequences versus the rewards, is there. And it's not skewed so that it's zero for consequences. They're actually very close together. So we still have those instincts. Let's not get into, you should never punish. You need to align it and do it properly and make sure that you are actually using it correctly. And here is an example of where it was done incorrectly. It was failures in all kinds of areas that were really minuscule, not important, and should have been just, brushed away, rather than the compliance on breach penalties, being strict with your breaches of culture. We have very stringent rules about collusion, for instance. Okay, and you get 3 chances, you're out. That's it. There are no wiggle room. We don't tolerate undermining other people, undermining the company, or talking badly behind people's back. We want everything to be a behavior that's rewarded for bringing things forward to be discussed. Okay, so that's what you want to reward, as opposed to just but you need the consequence when you get the repeated breaches that occur in the organization. And the reason it happens is, risk aversion's back to that flight mode. So people will scurry away from those things that, if they are not set up properly, like what I mentioned earlier, the form, every mistake you get punished for it, they're going to stop using the form, right? I'm afraid to use it. I might get something wrong. You get that kind of result as a consequence of the wrong penalties in place. All right. So penalties must discourage the harmful behaviors. The word harmful is really important, right? You often hear us also talking about do no harm, right? If you don't know the answer, be careful that you are not making, in coaching, you shouldn't be offering solutions because you don't fully understand the context and the situation until you help somebody to go through that process of discovery and learning and figuring it out, because you don't want to do harm, right? I've seen this lots of times with coaches that are great at selling, but they're more interested in the fee that they get, and they don't care about the harm that they will do to clients. We prefer to work the other way around and get results and focus on the client results and let the money take care of itself, right? So caring and making sure that you focus on the right things becomes critical. The do no harm is really important. You can use techniques like corrective coaching, or as I've talked over the past few weeks about the systems alignment to the behavior that you are getting. Maybe the behavior is because of the systems, not the people's intended behavior outcome that you observe, right? So go back and watch some of those previous webinars if you missed that, because it's really important to also remember that, systems drive behavior, okay? They are not isolated of each other. They are integrated into each other. So what you want to do, you want to list the penalties that you have and understand the behavior that they target. Is it really a harmful behavior, or is it just nitpicking, right? Be careful with what you are rewarding and what you are penalizing in those contexts. Principle 5, they need to be made visible, fair, and specific around the behavior. So let's talk about that a little bit. The innovation award demonstrating innovation, employees get excited, but nothing ever is visible, rewarded properly. And what starts to happen is one or two people constantly get those rewards, and so it leans towards favoritism as opposed to justifiable, fair compensation and rewards, right? So being transparent is important. Be fair, be equitable. If you do something for one person, you need to make it visible and aware to everybody and offered to everybody. Involve people, co-create. We've talked about that many times in the past. If you don't know the answer, reach out to your team and talk about how to solve that problem together, allow them to contribute and co-create the new structure and the system that you want to have in place to reward properly. All right. So, if you want a behavior of innovation, right, don't just use the word innovation, because that can mean many things. I rearranged my desk. I was so innovative. Well, good for you, right? Okay. What behavior are you really looking for, right? Are you looking for people that step up and are constantly re-educating themselves, growing their own skill sets? Is that the innovation? Is that what you mean by innovation? Or is innovation someone finding a problem with your business model and bringing forward some ideas on how to solve that? Or they got some negative feedback from a client and they spent some personal time thinking about that and brought forward an idea. What innovation are you really looking to reward, right? So think about that. And again, you have the opportunity to work with the team to eliminate that vagueness and get to specificity around the behavior that you want to observe, that is what you're really going to be rewarding. We've talked about systems. Here it is again. So align the systems to the incentives, right? So nonprofit organization wanted to deepen their community impact, but they were just rewarding the contributions that they were getting to the company so that they had more funding, etc. So they didn't really reward the depth of penetration within the community that was their intention. And if you think about it, if they do a really good job of that latter, penetrating the community and really impacting the community, how many people would want to help fund that? So is it the chicken and the egg? No, it's very clearly, right? If you do what you're expected to do, and you show that you care and you are driven by that and you reward that, people want to help. People will want to participate. So to all you nonprofit organizations out there, remember, it's not about getting more funding. It's about actually doing what needs to be done with the funds, so that they're motivated and excited to give you more and support what you're doing, to be excited to be part of your support group, your founders, if you like. Right. So budget allocation, performance metrics, leadership evaluations, all of these things need to be aligned with that motivation that you are driving for, your intended outcome, and how that will help the team achieve that, so that you raise the profile of your organization. It doesn't matter what you are doing. If you do the right thing by your clients, your existing members, and so forth, they will tell others. That's what referrals are all about. That's what loyalty programs are all about, right? So think more on that side, and the money will take care of itself. I guarantee you, if you do this the right way, you will achieve that. Map the life cycle. So here's how do you do that. Overlay the current incentives with each of the points that you are measuring, the performance, the KPIs. Check all of these measurements that they actually align with your objectives. So get the system aligned with your business objectives. Right. All right. Be transparent, share that publicly, reward that publicly. We've talked about all of those things. And then it will all fall into place. So, your incentive framework. Map current rewards to the actual behaviors. This is behavior intelligence, right? Understanding that if you want to get the behaviors that actually get you the results from the people, even from AI. All right. If you are using a lot of AI at the moment or going to do that, you need to understand where it fits in, right? Design behavior rewards, prototype it, test it, talk to some people, go out there and actually ask for that genuine feedback, reward the feedback, if you like. So, the thank you is important. The surprise, don't always, publicize what the reward is going to be. Surprise rewards are amazing, right? Go back to the animal instinct, if you like. There's some great stories around, how do they train killer whales, right? That you see these people swimming with a killer whale that's 100 times, maybe more, their size. In one chomp, they can kill that person. So how the hell do they, get a killer whale to perform all those tricks and acts by this small person, right? And the reality is, it's the types of rewards, the timeliness of the rewards, the penalties. You can't punish or slap or smack or whatever. You shouldn't do those anyway. You can't do anything other than ignore bad behavior and reward good behavior. So that in itself is a powerful tool, right? Okay, so even with kids, it's very easy to really apply these things that we observe with the animal kingdom, and we forget that we still have animal instincts in our flight and fight responses. All right. Your incentive toolkit, so we've talked about mapping, right? Map it, align it to the behavior, make sure that the right behavior is what's being rewarded. The recognition ritual, timeliness of that, right? The penalty, you do need to have some things that you do not want to have in your organization. Make sure that those are clear in a behavior context. Right? Being fair, equitable, publicly visible, right? Not in closed doors, not in the town hall concept, but quick response in there. And look at the systems. Systems are integral in how the two things work together. If you miss those sessions, do go back. We talked a lot last week about friction points with systems, and that's a really critical one. So people do what gets rewards. That's the truth, right? They don't do what gets announced or what gets posted on the wall. They don't recognize those things, only what gets rewarded. And sometimes, for salespeople, you need to understand their reward is financial, right? It's sales, it's commissions, right? Or it's repeat business. Whatever gets commissioned, right, is what they focus on. Engineers will be different. It will be, rewarding innovation, being recognized, the thank yous, all of those things, or maybe the new innovation ideas, etc. I promised you a 7-day plan. Here it is. Okay, so spend the first couple of days, right, conducting the incentive map. Look at what is actually the results that you're getting, map it to the rewards that are in place, so that you can see the correlation of reward to behavior. Right? Then pick one that you want to change, that is lagging behind your objective, right? Design a new behavior, discuss it, launch it, prototype it first with a couple of people, just to make sure that you get the bugs ironed out. You're not going to see everything that can happen, because you're often not able to put yourself in their shoes to actually respond in that role, in that function. Okay. Check the penalties. We had a great situation that should have had penalties, where there was a competition and one person just nailed it very quickly out of the gate. When we looked deeper into it, that person got there so quickly because he farmed out a lot of his tasks to his colleagues, right? And so they couldn't achieve their objective for the competition. And so there should have been some consequences around that should have been in place to do that. So you don't give up your day-to-day tasks just to achieve your bonus, right? Okay. So that should be one of the traps here. Don't just reward the outcomes while ignoring the enabling behavior. Look at that. The annual bonuses, they don't work. You're just wasting a lot of money doing that. Make sure it's timely. If you're going to use money, make sure it's aligned to the behavior that you are looking to get. Penalties that punish all mistakes equally, they don't work, obviously. Vague criterias, you've talked about that so many times. That's why AccuMatch talks about specificity as opposed to labels and vagueness, and you are a dominant personality, or you are outgoing. All of these labels or vague terms, they're meaningless to the brain. We need specificity so that we understand the actual behavior, and that's why AccuMatch has 49 different behaviors that we map to get clarity on that specificity. Contradicting incentives, assuming that good intentions will automatically translate to behavior. I've been there myself. I've seen the outcome drastic in some cases, but that's how we've learned those lessons, right? So that's it for today. If you have any questions, we'll be online looking for those. Next week, we dive more into this from another angle, all right? And we look at the reward feedback behavior, not just the outcomes. So align your reward with what you want. Today was about incentives and intentions. We're going to dive into that a little bit more next week. All right. So thanks for joining. Again, if you're interested in joining our BIQ Nexus, there'll be something out in your email shortly. The book is available on Amazon, and I will see you all next week.